Absolutely. WhatsApp 0809 and you can also tweet at Smooth981FM. Hashtag is freshly pressed 981.
All right, so we start with this first story from the Punch newspaper. This is for you, Uade. The Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, they've joined the call for an embargo on the creation of more universities, seeing that the tally, as we know, by the last counts, is 170 universities comprising 43 federal universities, 48 state universities, 79 private universities. Could you please weigh in on the story and tell us why they feel the need to make this call now, seeing that JAMB has been capitalizing mostly on the admissions and students that have been registering so far, and the revenue stream has been strongly linked to that. But your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this is a needed call by JAMB. Our university systems have gone down so badly that we can't really be sure of those we produce as graduates from the university system. It's long overdue. Rather than just continue to create new universities, let's improve on the educational system within the current ones and improve the quality of graduates that we have in Nigeria. Um, I agree with the JAM registrar, Professor Isha Kulede, that it's time for us to put more monies into the educational system of the university system in Nigeria. Um, just to quote him, he said, since education is everybody's business, all Nigerians should support the effort towards educational development. We've spoken so much about education in the last 2 months and how the system has become very poor due to the struggle for funding, whether it's both state or federal government universities. And like you also know, the private universities are not cheap. So, despite the fact that JAMB is making so much money or so much revenue from candidates, I think it's time to also boost the quality of people who are coming into our workforce.
Yeah, Tunde.
Yeah. I mean, we say it all the time. We need to take education very seriously, and this idea that every state, must have its own university, or there must be some federal institution in my hamlet, is a problem, because you have institutions that shouldn't be the grade of a federal institution, shouldn't be the grade of a university at all. It's a tertiary institution, when created as technical colleges, being granted the status of a university. And it's a problem. We find people, we're more than willing to send our children abroad, those who can afford it, to send their as a country, I mean, send their children abroad to study elsewhere. Why is it such a problem to say, oh, the best state happens to be in Kano? Yeah, and all of us send, or the majority send, the children there. We only need a handful of really good schools. Yes. I mean, the UK has many tertiary institutions, but which ones do they tout and make noise about? It's your Cambridges, it's Oxford. America has Ivy League schools, right? We need to have that sort of gold standard and move away from this. I need a federal institution in my. It's finding job for the boys. Bottom line, and it's a huge. Once anyone who's come into contact with the vast majority, anyone who's headed a federal institution as a civil servant, you see the kind of life they live. You know that I'm not generalizing, but there's a lot of money generally for them to play with, and that the funds that go into the education is underfunded, no doubt.
Yes.
But the large majority of what even goes in there is misappropriated still.
Yes. And also there's the need for capacity development in terms of the skill set or the level of qualification of the teachers themselves. Public education used to be the most attractive thing when it comes to the education sector. You find that the best crop of people
wanting to teaching.
Exactly, but
even down to primary school level. Now it's almost a shame to be a primary school teacher.
I know. Let's move on now to discuss this next story about airlines, especially the national carrier still in conversation. From this day newspaper, I'll have this report that reads, federal governments to verify ex-Nigeria Airways workers in London based on the need to address the pending problems with salaries, old salaries for defunct Nigeria Airways workers before the Nigeria Air takes flight. This conversation is very important as it's being taken to London. They said the reason why the federal government is approving the conduct of the exercise in London is to capture those in diaspora due to the role, according to them, of the City of London, that the City of London played as the European operational office of the defunct Nigeria Airways. Let's have your thoughts on this story, Walao.
Well, I think we have to commend the President Muhammad Buhari's administration for taking on all the legacy debts that has been outstanding for quite a number of years, and we've had successive government that have come in place and they haven't actually looked at it. Um, there's the common saying, a laborer deserves his wages, and it's only fair that if people have worked so hard for the country, they deserve to get their late wages, and they also deserve their entitlement. This entitlement we're talking about now is something that has been due to the staff of the Nigerian Airways. The airline we know has gone moribund now for decades now, probably close to 2 decades now. It's gone moribund, and a lot of people were laid off or let go of. We're talking about 6,000 workers, and I mean, their severance packages should have been cleared, should have been paid immediately. But this is so typical as a part of the issues that we find out happens a lot in Nigeria, where people are due, especially pensioners.
Yes.
You find out that you see a lot of pensioners that die in the course or in the process of trying to retrieve what is actually due to them, and they end up not getting it.
Yes, well, if you would recall, in October of 2018, right after the federal government had initiated the first set of verification exercise,
They did pay
50%.
Yeah, they paid
of the
50%,
entitlements were paid to the ex-workers,
which was
But they
about
said-
22.5 billion.
Exactly.
which
So
was
this
paid.
new move
Yep.
is to capture those who cannot, who need not be burdened with the responsibility of traveling down to Nigeria.
Well,
just to settle the remaining.
The ones
four.
that are they've done part of the settlement, just as you said. I mean, settlement has been done in Lagos, Kano, and Enugu, but now they're only just trying to capture those that
Yeah,
are
that's-
residing in the
everybody
UK
else,
and in the
those who are in
diaspora.
diaspora, do they all live in the UK?
That's the question.
I don't have a problem with this. I would like to know the cost, though. Right, so it's good they're taking on the debt. My only question is the cost. So maybe for operational reasons it makes sense, but Nigeria now, I would like to really know how much it costs. The mere fact that not all of them live in the UK and people seem to travel down, then you might as well come home.
Just to add one last thing, I hope that those who have passed on will be
We'll see
remembered
that exactly.
Yeah,
Very
the families
important.
in
will
this.
Yeah.
Their families will be able to
Compensated.
verify their status and will be compensated accordingly.
Very important.
So that's the need for records. Now, let's move on to this one. As the records show that 5 directors have been jailed over 5 for their involvement in the 5.2 billion naira rural electricity project fraud. Uade, please take us through this story. Let's especially, highlighting the personalities involved and what EFCC, being the prosecutors of this case, have achieved so
Let me
far.
let Tunde take this story.
Okay.
The
All right,
5 directors.
So from Vanguard newspaper, court jails 5 directors over 5.2 billion naira rural electricity project fund. But why they take the lead?
Let me take the lead.
Yes, please.
This is a welcome development. Like I said, if the judicial system will work, if you have all the necessary facts and investigation details put together. But there's something that the lawyers of these 5 have said, that the FCC has no case against them. But based on the filings of the FCC, like I said earlier, if the FCC does their work appropriately and do it diligently and ensure that the investigation is properly carried out, they would surely get convictions for people who have committed crimes of fraud. And that is really important in this dispensation of ensuring that the FCC have their investigative documents properly laid out, because that's the only thing I see here, that they've done their work well. They've been able to establish, and the courts have agreed with that. And these 5 people will go to jail. They haven't said the length of time, but like I said earlier, the lawyer, defendant's lawyer, Mr. Paul Iroko-Rosan, entered a no-case submission insisting that the prosecution failed to establish prima facie criminal cases against them. So we also have to look at that as the case may be.
But let's highlight the case in point from the 2008 event as it happened. They said they were involved subject to criticism, or rather investigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for their involvement in the 2008 65-count criminal charge preferred against them. They said they had alleged that they sequentially withdrew monies that were earmarked for rural electrification contracts and shared them among themselves. First of all, examining the offices that they held at the time, what facilities that they used in getting these sums of money allotted to themselves.
Well, these when you look at them, the managing director, the accountant, these are the highly placed management staff, and they're the ones who are in charge of ensuring that these projects are properly executed. So if the body that is in charge of ensuring projects are executed are the ones stealing the money, alleged committing frauds and withdrawing monies, then it goes a long way to show the level of governance within that system. Do they have a board that checks them? Do they have what were all the board approvals that were gotten towards ensuring that these monies could not be taken out without proper without due process. So like I said, it calls to question the level of governance within that system.
I guess what I'm asking essentially is how wide is the net, and how many people are involved in this beyond what we see on paper?
Well, like I said, it could be much more, but you would look at the principal officers who are responsible for ensuring that these things are done, and they would take the fall for it, because if the MD is part and parcel of the people who are alleged committing this fraud, then it's obvious that it's much more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the extent to which, because one of the charges are that 119 million was withdrawn from the account of the central bank. I know you don't just, we're not talking about a private bank or anything.
Yeah.
You don't just withdraw from the central bank without proper documentation and, should I say, lack of a better word, but due process. So it has to extend beyond that, and that's probably on the basis of that their claim is that, look, we don't have any case to answer here. Monies were lawfully taken out. Now, whether they were used for what they're supposed to be used for is an entirely different thing. But the thing that hits me here, the first thing that hits me is that, do you know how many similar fraud scams are floating?
That's happening right now.
I'm sure so many people don't even know. The ones that even have been established, not talk of the ones that we don't know that are going on now. The vast majority of the listeners won't even have remembered or known that this was in court.
Exactly. Just to clarify, prima facie actually just indicates that at first sight, this which is what their defense counsel is saying, that at first sight there's no criminal
they
case.
want prosecutions to provide
Evidence.
establish a proper case and provide evidence.
Yes, thank you. Let's move forward now to this next story. Very quickly from the Vanguard Guardian newspaper. Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria reopens Port Harcourt International Airport after near mishap. So a private airlines, or rather not a private airline, and a local airline plane was overran its runway, the runway last weekend, and it caused a lot of fear in the hearts of passengers. I wouldn't want to be on that plane at the time it happened, but these things are bound to happen. There was a heavy downpour. We know how turbulent it could be, flights can be when that happens, but this was the case. They shut it down temporarily and reopened the services for the public. But looking through these incidences, flights are touted to be the safest way to travel or means of travel in the world, but how is it in Nigeria, Tunde?
Yeah, so statistically safest.
Safest, yes.
The more road accidents, for instance. But you said these things are expected to happen. Yes, they're expected to happen when you have very little regard for life.
Right.
You have very little regard for process.
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances, safety. Yeah, there's nothing. Regardless of the state of our airports, there's nothing wrong with this airport. It's more procedural in a sense. There's bad weather, right? And we all know typically when it's not just the weather at departure, but at your destination as well.
Yes.
Where that destination is bad, those flights get delayed. That's what should happen, right? As annoying as delays can be for passengers and for flyers, it's for their own safety for reasons like this.
Yes.
But we don't have the right checks, we don't have the right people, and then we have unscrupulous pilots and unscrupulous, sometimes just pilots, not just pilots are put under pressure by the organizations and their businesses, because they really, some of them, they run them like they're kabus.
Yes.
Do you understand? There's so much that is wrong in this space, and it's down to us not valuing life. And finally, because there isn't, so people, there's a quote, I won't mention the quote, there's a quote from one of the passengers, and most people, when it happens to us, we're just too thankful for escaping with life that nobody takes it up. Why don't they sue? They should sue. If the airline goes down, paying out damages, the other guys will
take you. And
yeah,
then
exactly. That's why I was, when I saw the story, the first thing that came to mind was, okay, so all the people, passengers who whose lives were
Yeah, put at
essentially put
risk.
in danger or at risk here, what are they doing?
What are they? No, they
Are
all leave
asking
thankful.
questions? We're not just supposed to say thank you.
They all want to
Thank
escape the
God
airport
we're
as quickly as
alive.
possible. Yeah.
But I mean, how do you hold someone accountable for this?
And we don't take it as a responsibility that we need to follow up on these things, not just for ourselves, but for the next guy.
Well, talking about accountability, I like how passionate you guys are on this issue, because there are a lot of people involved here: the air traffic control, the airline itself, the airports,
Fire management.
Because Tunde, you made a very valid point. I mean, obviously they should already have an oversight. The oversight function should provide certain information that would let them know whether it's safe to take off.
Yeah,
First of all, because
absolutely.
the flight left Abuja. It's not like it was an international flight that was
exactly.
flying for hours before it got there.
Yeah,
It left Abuja to Port Harcourt, and they should have known.
yeah, definitely.
Should have.
Well, you
there
had
we
it
are.
for, did I? clear
Think
that
you
up?
covered.
All right. Thank you.
Alright.
Quick messages before we move on to the next stories. This one is from WhatsApp. On WhatsApp, our number is 0809 444 981. Shegun says, since 1999, politicians have run down our public educational system because they wanted to set up private institutions. Nice step to employ some sense. That's from Shegun. Una Agu sent in this one.
And Una says, good morning. We have more than enough universities in the country. Anyone advocating new ones rather than maintaining existing ones is just doing so for his personal business.
Emeka here says, please note that the United States you're referring to has more than 4,000 universities spread across 50
The
states.
continent, sir. Nigeria is not the size of Texas.
No, it's not. So we actually need more schools in Nigeria due to our population and poverty level. The problem is working on them to be up to relative standards. And more Ivy League schools in the US are actually private schools, Harvard and Yale continent. We need more oversight and strict compliance to the international educational practices. But asking for more schools is asking for more funds that we do not necessarily
You
have.
actually need better primary schools and secondary schools than you need.
Than
How
you
about
universities.
revamping existing
Exactly.
facilities? But let's move on, please.
All right, I'm coming to Gbolahan with this. This is a breaking story from the New Telegraph, and this happened in Lagos. 8 people were injured when a story building that collapsed in Mafoluku. It was gathered that the building located at number 35 at Sawyer Street was an old structure already earmarked for demolition.
Yes, this is interesting because I mean, how many times have we on this program talked about the collapsed building?
Yeah.
Just about 2 weeks ago, there was an incident that happened in Magodo where there was a building that also did collapse. It's almost like a regular incident now that we have building collapse probably on a monthly basis that happens in Lagos, and what you get is this is announced and nothing else is
And
done
then we move
afterwards.
on.
We just move on. Thankfully, just as it's been said, thank God that nobody died.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the usual phrase in Nigeria. We only had people injured, and 6 of them received treatment by the emergency agency, and things were fine. But the question that we should be asking is, how many of these buildings do we still have currently existing in Lagos? What exactly
They
are
noted
the
that there are
agencies doing?
They have noted that there are a couple of buildings around that
Yes.
same area
Yes.
that have been marked
Marked for demolition.
This one will take precedence, seeing that it has happened lately. Fortunately for us,
Yes.
there was nobody. They said they'd evacuated the buildings way before this incident.
Mm.
But then I think the real question is, why did they have to take this long?
That's exactly.
For it to be brought down.
Exactly. That's where I'm going. So
I mean, if you mark a building for demolition,
then you should demolish
what's
almost
the
immediately
timeline
for
before the
demolition.
building comes down?
Exactly. So you find out that you get a lot of buildings have been marked for demolition. There are situations that occur in the case that you have even the residents refusing to leave that building. So you still find out that a lot of them are there. Then the owners of the buildings as well are not cooperating with the government sometimes when it comes to demolition of this building. And of course, we know the challenge that we have in Lagos anyway. There's a deficit of accommodation of houses that it isn't available. But the government needs to do more in enforcing all this, because of course, what's the value of we had a building that collapsed where we had several
On Lagos Island.
on Lagos Island, where we had several students, people within the ages of children,
essentially.
some of them died as well, which was a bit unfortunate. So we need to protect the lives of people generally. That's the role of the government.
All right. Moving on to our next story. This is from the Punch newspaper. Sunday. My predecessor spent 2.3 billion on burial in 5 months. This is coming from the Bauchi state governor Bala Mohammed, alleging that Mohammed Abubakar, the previous governor, spent 2.3 billion to buy materials for burials in the state. Makes you want to ask who died.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I guess with all the insecurity in the states, you hear stories like this. You hear all the things that Rochester alleged to have done, projects and stuff he has done to in Imo, and you no longer have to be. It's clear you no longer have to be inventive to steal public funds.
I mean,
clearly, there's really no other way to say it. They spent 900 million on cloth, on white cloth, and I assume the vast majority of these, even when you look at the line items, white cloth and wood, you'd assume that these are people who are buried according to the Muslim rites, and it's not an elaborate burial or function or ceremony. So that even the cloth is meant to be plain, and it describes it as plain. But please, how many people died that he had spent 9 million? This is 5 months.
How much is a yard of China?
Exactly, 5 months. This is as obvious as my tenure is running up. I need to clean up or clear out whatever it is, and you don't even bother being inventive about it. 9 million for cloth, 2 point whatever, another twice that amount for wood. It's ridiculous. It's shameful, but it's where we are.
You sound frustrated.
It is frustrating. It's really frustrating.
The guy had come up with something elaborate,
So,
and something, and then money just sort of fell in the hole.
I don't mean it'd be worth dwelling on
This
some more.
is stealing into affairs and saying nothing I do about it.
Okay, so please add your names to your messages so we can take them. Desmond from Lekki says it's not only Nigeria Airways. So many Nigerian setup companies. If you owe a person for over 10 years, what if the person dies? That's a question regarding payment of arrears for Nigeria Airways stuff. JP says, good morning, freshly pressed. Where is the Federal Airport Authority in all of this, for Pete's sake? We can't keep blaming cash-paying customers for inadequacies from service providers and the government. All right. Onago says, a state where burial ceremony is not held and caskets not being used, where did the expenses come from?
Exactly.
Valid question. Solomon says, Fola, who died?
So it's probably fair to say that he denies it, the ex-governor sort of denies it.
There you go.
That's
That's the need for investigation, right? Comrade Henry says, in as much as I support the funding of the federal universities, I strongly oppose the call on the government to stop further establishment of institutions. You will corroborate with me that each year, our secondary schools turn out millions of students seeking admission, and the capacity of the existing ones to accommodate them is nothing to write home about. In my opinion, the government should establish more with proper funding to avoid security concerns. Idle mind, they say, is the devil's workshop.
Not everyone has to have a university degree,
But that thing always blows up when you say it.
Not everybody.
It's okay.
We'll have more stories to go through.
One more.
Just one more.
Yes.
All right. So final story. This is from the Vanguard newspaper. The Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission says that the ongoing monitoring and verification exercise on tax collection by deposit money banks appointed by FIRS and Customs is within its mandate.
Well, I don't know who is actually challenging the authorities of RAMFAC or where the debate is actually coming from, but they're here to state clearly that they're within the purview of their responsibilities, and they've gone by quoting the section 6.1 of the RAMFAC Act 2004, which states that they have the mandate provided by the Commission, which is they have powers, among other things, to monitor accruals and disbursement of revenue from the federal account. So basically what they're just saying is that they have the overall authority to monitor a lot of the government agencies that generate revenue. We're talking about the FIRS, we're talking about the NNPC, the DPR, the other tax generating authorities. And the reason for that is just in order to be able to accumulate all of government revenue and all the amount that government is generated over a certain duration of time, and then know how to distribute this monies that have been generated by the government agencies too. But the question I would also like to ask is, where has RAMFAC been when we had the incidents of NNPC and the money that was actually deducted from source, which has been used for the petroleum subsidy without any, without it going through the proper authorities? I mean, this raises one of the issues that Tunde was talking about, where monies just go missing from government pockets without any authorities oversighting this.
Well, very quickly, I'll remind you from when. Let's take our minds back to when the first V8 program started.
Yes.
The V8s.
Voluntary asset
declaration.
Declaration.
So the whole tax net thing spreading across to cover private establishments that were defaulting in tax over the years. The federal government introduced that program first, just to see how it can allow companies to now declare their taxes. This is closely related because there was a time where, not so long ago, where the CBN, through the Revenue Mobilization and Assets, the committee started looking into clamping down on companies who've been defaulting and sort of hiding behind, what would I say, shell companies, and not declaring their taxes or declaring their funds, to see how they can compel them to pay their taxes or declare such finances. So this is an extended program that's been going on. And somehow covering this aspect, the RMAFC is coming out to say that this is actually within the laws for us to act. So it's not coming from the clouds.
No. They're operating within the laws. But what they are actually doing is that they are an oversight to other government agencies. They would not necessarily, RAMFAC wouldn't actually deal directly with individuals that are defaulting on paying their taxes.
Which is what they're essentially saying. So they're working within the ambit of the law to explore the tools that are available to all these institutions to perform their oversight functions.
Yeah, which is making sure that all the agencies remit whatever is due to the government appropriately, and to block all leakages. So, it's we need this anyway in Nigeria, because of course over the years we've had a lot of government revenues go missing and found its way in
through deposit money banks. I also remember the conversation that we had about local governments, how the CBN now decided to clamp down on the extra, would I say, financial activities that have been going on between the local governments and the deposit money banks, to remove the third-party agents and all that exists.
So it's good. Anything that would actually help with making sure that government generates a lot of revenue, because we know that the government needs more money. We need a lot of money, and we need to block all the leakages. So good work on them. Let them carry on with responsibilities.
Just hope it's not abused.
Yep.
That's the major concern there. Let's take messages.
Lukman from Bagada says, on the frivolous spending by incumbents that did not know that they're leaving office, maybe the National Assembly should make a law making yearly independent audits a must for government at all levels.
All right, more messages here. This one is from Tony from Apapa. It says, we heard that from some quarters that the building has been rehabilitated. I was talking about the building in Mafuluku. If it was marked for demolition, why rehabilitate it? This is the handwork of some wicked developers. Thank God it wasn't completed. We would have had grave casualties. That Isha boy from Lekki says, good morning. These people will not kill us with unbelievable tales of how monies were spent. I just they laugh. Who is fooling who? Thank you. Wale has the final message.
Wale says, if you have a helicopter landing on road, what do you expect from airports with poor governance? Okay,
we saw a social media trending video, but well, that's not in the news. But
when you're big, you're big.
Please don't be a nuisance on the road. That's what I'm saying. Thank you. Special thanks to our analysts who stepped in this morning. Tunde, glad to have you back. Tunde Okufi is his handle on Twitter. Gbolahan is at Mr. G Quest, and Uade is at reinknigeria. Fola and myself, Valentine, will be here to talk sports next inside of the locker room. Good morning.
Sorry, I'd forgotten I was on number 3.